If you want to measure the strength of a person, do not look at how much weight he can lift, nor how fast he can run. Look instead at the size of his heart. True strength is revealed not by how much you take, but by how much you can give. Every day, life presents us with choices. Some are small, whether to greet a stranger with a smile, whether to offer our seat to the elderly, whether to listen when someone speaks with a heavy heart. Others are greater: to forgive when we have been wronged, to help when no one else is watching, to share when it is easier to keep for ourselves. Kindness is not weakness. Compassion is not softness. They are powers, invisible powers, that can change the direction of a human life. A single word of kindness can lift someone from despair. A single gesture of compassion can prevent a heart from breaking. But the most important aspect is this: kindness must not be selective. To be kind only to those who please us is not real kindness. To be compassionate only when convenient is not true compassion. The heart must remain big, open and steady, even when the world does not return the same warmth. You see, when we help others, we are in truth helping ourselves. When we expand our hearts, we are training our spirit. Compassion is not only for the world outside, it is a training for the world inside. So remember, wealth, power and status may pass away, but the size of your heart and the depth of your kindness, these are treasures no one can steal. Carry them, and you will always walk with strength. Be strong enough to lift others, wise enough to forgive, and open enough to keep a big heart. When we hear the word strength, our minds often move immediately to the physical body. We think of someone who can endure pain, who can carry heavy loads, who can strike with force and resist exhaustion. Yet all of these forms of strength remain bound by limitation. The strongest body will one day tire. The most skilled warrior will eventually fall. If we define strength only by muscles, by speed, or by control over the physical world, then we are speaking of a strength that is temporary. What happens then when the body is no longer capable? What happens when youth fades, or when challenges arise that no physical force can solve? Here the illusion of strength collapses, and in this moment we begin to see that true strength must be sought elsewhere. It must be something that does not diminish with age, something that grows instead of declines. This is where the heart becomes the true measure. A large heart is not measured in size by what you see, but in capacity, the capacity to forgive, to understand, to remain steady, even when life is unfair. Physical power is concerned with control, controlling weight, controlling movement, controlling situations, but the strength of the heart is concerned with letting go. To forgive when insulted requires more strength than to retaliate. To remain calm in chaos requires more discipline than to shout in anger. To show kindness to someone who has caused you pain requires more courage than any battle fought with fists. This is why the heart, not the body, reveals the real strength of a person. Anyone can lift a stone. Not everyone can lift the burden of hatred and transform it into compassion. The man or woman who can do this has touched a strength that no external force can overcome. The beauty of this strength is that it does not diminish when shared. If you share physical strength, you become tired. If you share material possessions, you become poorer. But when you share strength of the heart, it multiplies. A kind word spoken to someone does not weaken you. It strengthens both the speaker and the receiver. Compassion given to another does not reduce your energy. It expands your spirit. This is why in the end, those who live with kindness often appear radiant even in difficulty. Their hearts are exercised daily, just like a muscle. But unlike the physical body, this muscle of the heart grows stronger as it ages. Imagine a society where we train the heart as much as we train the body. Imagine schools where the strength of kindness is valued above competition, and families where compassion is praised above pride. Such training would produce human beings with a depth of strength no calamity could shatter. But let us not mistake a big heart for weakness. Too often people believe that kindness makes one vulnerable, that compassion invites exploitation. They say if you are too kind, people will use you. If you forgive, people will walk over you. But this thinking is a misunderstanding of strength. When a river flows, does it become weaker because it bends around rocks? No, it becomes stronger, carving valleys, nourishing lands, sustaining life. So too the big heart bends, forgives, gives, and in this giving it becomes unbreakable. To withhold kindness is easy. To be selfish is natural, but to remain kind in a world that tests you, that is true mastery. The person who can remain compassionate, even in hardship, is stronger than any conqueror of lands. For what does it profit a person to control the world if they cannot control their own heart? There are forces in life that we can see, and forces that we cannot. The wind cannot be seen, yet it shapes the mountains and moves the seas. Gravity cannot be touched, yet it holds the stars in place and keeps our feet grounded on the earth. In the same way, kindness and compassion are invisible powers that shape the human experience more deeply than any material force. When a person is kind to us, there is no physical weight added, no visible object exchanged, and yet something shifts within us. A warmth appears in the chest, a tension dissolves in the mind, and suddenly the world feels lighter. Science can measure the heartbeat, it can track brain activity, but it cannot fully measure what it means when one human being looks upon another with genuine compassion. That is the nature of this force. It is unseen but undeniable. Think of a time when you were struggling silently, carrying a weight no one could see. Perhaps it was grief, perhaps loneliness, perhaps doubt in yourself. In such moments, even a single gesture can change the entire direction of a day, sometimes even a life. A smile offered by a stranger, a hand placed on the shoulder, a few words of encouragement. These may seem small on the surface, but within they work like medicine. Kindness enters where logic fails. It reaches places in the human soul that advice, money, or power cannot touch. Compassion says to another human being, I see you, I acknowledge your struggle, and I walk beside you. And when someone feels seen, when they feel understood, their inner strength awakens. Suddenly despair softens, hope returns, and life becomes possible again. This is the invisible transformation caused by kindness. The turning of darkness into light, without any physical weapon, without any visible transaction. The power of compassion lies also in its ripple effect. Just as a single stone thrown into water creates waves that reach the farthest edges, a single act of kindness can travel far beyond the one who first received it. A child who grows up in an environment of compassion learns not only to receive but also to give. That child years later becomes an adult who naturally extends kindness to others. A stranger helped on the road may later become the person who helps another in crisis. These chains of invisible influence stretch across generations, shaping societies in ways we may never fully see. This is why the greatest leaders, teachers, and guides throughout history have not ruled by force alone but by compassion. Their words, carried by kindness, outlive their bodies. Their teachings, infused with compassion, become eternal. What the sword conquers, time eventually destroys, but what compassion nurtures, time carries forward. If we doubt the power of these invisible forces, it is only because we live in a world that praises what is seen. We admire the wealth displayed, the muscles shown, the achievements recorded. Yet all of these, though visible, are temporary. The unseen, however, lasts longer. You cannot photograph compassion, you cannot weigh kindness on a scale, yet their effects linger in the human heart far beyond the moment. We often forget the details of what someone said, but we remember how they made us feel. The invisible imprint lasts longer than the visible impression. So when we speak of strength, of power, of transformation, we must remember the invisible is not weaker than the visible, it is often greater. Kindness may not build towers of stone, but it builds bridges between people. Compassion may not conquer lands, but it conquers fear, loneliness and hatred. And in this conquest, lives are transformed in ways more permanent than any physical monument. Many people believe they are kind, but their kindness is often like the sun on a clear day, shining only when the sky is bright and the conditions are pleasant. They are kind to those who smile at them, compassionate to those who agree with them, and generous when it does not cost too much. But true kindness is not seasonal. It does not appear only when circumstances are comfortable. Real kindness shows itself in the moments when it is least convenient, when we are tired, when we are misunderstood, when giving feels like a sacrifice rather than a gesture. It is easy to be kind when there is applause, but when no one is watching, when the act may never be acknowledged or rewarded, that is where the heart is tested. And only then can we see whether kindness is genuine or whether it is a performance seeking return. The depth of compassion is revealed in how we treat those who cannot repay us. To show kindness to the powerful in hope of favor is not rare. To be generous to the wealthy in hope of benefit is not difficult. But to show the same patience, warmth and humanity to those who may never lift us up, the poor, the forgotten, the broken, this is where the true measure of compassion lies. History remembers not the countless transactions of self-interest, but the rare moments when someone chose to act without calculation. The heart that gives without expecting anything in return is free, because it is no longer bound by the chains of outcome. This freedom is a form of power, a silent strength that grows with every unselfish act. But what happens when kindness is not returned? This is where many hearts close. A smile met with coldness, generosity answered with ingratitude, forgiveness met with repeated offense. These are the moments when people say, "Enough, I will not be kind again." And yet, if kindness dies here, it was never unconditional. True kindness does not depend on the reaction of others, because it does not come from the outside, it comes from the inner world. If a flower only bloomed when it was admired, it would be a weak flower. But the flower blooms because blooming is its nature. In the same way, a person with a big heart shows kindness because it is their nature, not because of what they receive. The gift is given not to change the other, but to remain true to oneself. This is why kindness that endures rejection or silence is more powerful than kindness that seeks recognition. It is important to understand that unconditional kindness is not blind submission. To be kind does not mean to allow others to harm us endlessly, nor does it mean we should remain in situations of injustice without boundaries. Rather, it means that even when we must draw lines, we do not allow bitterness to poison the heart. We can walk away without hatred. We can protect ourselves without cruelty. We can refuse to be treated unjustly, yet still refuse to lose compassion. This is the subtle art of keeping the heart big, not selective, not calculating, not selective, not calculating, not shrinking when faced with difficulty. Just as the sun does not choose only one mountain to shine on, true kindness is not selective in its reach. And just as the river flows around both stone and soil without discrimination, compassion flows through life without needing approval. When we help another human being, it may seem as if the benefit flows only in one direction. A hungry person receives food, the lonely receive company, the lost receive guidance. From the outside, the act looks like a transfer from the giver to the receiver. But if we observe carefully, something deeper takes place. Each act of kindness trains the spirit, just as every repetition in physical exercise strengthens the body. To stretch out a hand to another is to stretch the heart. To lift someone who has fallen is to lift a part of our own humanity. The body grows by lifting weights. The spirit grows by lifting others. Every time we resist selfishness, every time we overcome indifference, we are cultivating the muscles of the inner world. This training is subtle, often invisible, but it is more transformative than we first realize. When we choose to help, we practice patience. When we offer compassion, we practice humility. When we forgive, we practice releasing the ego. And slowly, without noticing, these practices begin to shape our character. Just as a martial artist repeats movements until they become effortless, the one who helps others repeats kindness until it becomes natural. At first we may help with resistance, with hesitation, with calculation, but with practice, the resistance fades, and kindness becomes a spontaneous expression of who we are. In this way, helping others is not an act of charity alone. It is a discipline of the spirit. It is how we move from being ruled by the narrow self to living with a heart that includes more than just ourselves. There is another dimension as well. When we help others, we begin to see the world differently. The walls of our own concerns begin to dissolve, and suddenly we notice the silent struggles that surround us. A person who has practiced compassion develops sensitivity, the ability to sense pain even when it is unspoken, the ability to recognize need even when it is hidden. This sensitivity is a form of awakening. We begin to realize that our life is not isolated, that the thread of our existence is woven together with the lives of others. Helping others is therefore not only an external act, it expands the inner world by awakening awareness. We learn to see more, feel more, understand more, and through this expansion our own suffering begins to shrink. A heart that includes others has no space left for narrow complaints. Perhaps the greatest paradox of compassion is this: when you help another, you are also healing yourself. When you give, you receive clarity. When you share, you discover abundance. When you lift someone, your own spirit rises with them. To the outside world, it may look as if you are losing time, losing energy, losing effort, but inwardly, you are gaining strength, depth, and freedom. The inner world is like a vessel. The more we fill it with acts of kindness, the larger it becomes. And unlike material vessels that overflow when filled, the vessel of the heart expands endlessly, able to contain more love, more understanding, more wisdom. Helping others is therefore not a burden on the path of life. It is the path itself, the training ground where the spirit becomes strong enough to carry the weight of existence. Human beings spend much of their life chasing after what they can see, touch, and measure: wealth, possessions, recognition, titles. All of these become the targets of our energy. And yet, if you look carefully, each one of these treasures carries within it the seed of impermanence. The wealth you gather can be lost in a moment of misfortune. The possessions you guard will eventually decay, break, or pass into the hands of others. Even the recognition you crave, the praise of the world, will one day be forgotten when new faces appear, new names are celebrated. The body itself, no matter how strong or beautiful, will one day fade. This is not a tragedy. It is simply the nature of all things material. To live as if they are permanent is to live in illusion. The wise therefore begin to look for treasures that do not fade, treasures that can travel beyond the limits of time. Kindness is one of those treasures. A compassionate act may seem small in the moment, but it plants seeds in the soil of human memory. Long after material possessions have crumbled, the warmth of kindness remains in the heart of the one who received it. Ask yourself, when you remember your life, what moments shine most brightly? They are not always the days of material gain. More often, they are the moments when someone showed you care, when someone stood beside you in difficulty, when someone extended compassion without condition. These memories do not fade. They carry strength, they give comfort, they shape character. This is why kindness is called a timeless treasure. It is stored not in banks, not in vaults, not in titles, but in the invisible chamber of the human heart, and that chamber is not bound by decay. Compassion too endures in ways material wealth cannot. A compassionate person leaves behind ripples that continue long after their body is gone. Think of the teachers, guides, and elders who shaped your path. Many of them may no longer be physically present, but the compassion they offered continues to live in your choices, your values, your way of being. A kind word spoken decades ago can still guide a person today. A compassionate act witnessed in childhood can still inspire courage in adulthood. The material possessions of those people may have vanished, but their compassion remains alive in the hearts they touched. This is the true legacy of a human being, not the monuments they build of stone, but the unseen monuments they build within other human souls. And unlike stone, which cracks with time, these monuments of kindness are eternal. This understanding changes the way we live. If we measure our worth by material gain, we are bound to live in constant fear, fear of losing, fear of change, fear of impermanence. But if we measure our life by the treasures of kindness and compassion, then there is no fear, for these treasures cannot be stolen. They do not depend on status, on wealth, on recognition. They grow by being shared. The more compassion you give, the richer you become. The more kindness you show, the more your spirit expands. In this sense, kindness and compassion are not only timeless, they are infinite. They have no boundary, no ceiling, no point of exhaustion. A person who understands this begins to live with a different orientation, less attached to what fades, more rooted in what remains. And such a person, no matter the external circumstances, carries within them the wealth of a king and the peace of a sage. When you reflect on life, you begin to see that strength is not measured by the size of the body, but by the size of the heart. You begin to recognize that the greatest forces are not always the ones that can be touched or seen, but the invisible powers of kindness and compassion that quietly transform the world. You begin to realize that real kindness is not a choice of convenience nor a tool for recognition. It is a way of being, a discipline of the spirit, a path of training. Each time you help another, you are not only lifting them, you are also training yourself. Each time you extend compassion, you are not only softening their suffering, you are also expanding the boundaries of your own inner world. And slowly, without knowing, you are shaping a strength within you that cannot be broken. The world will tell you that wealth, status, and power are treasures. But when time passes, these treasures fade like shadows at sunset. What remains, what truly endures, are the timeless treasures carried in the heart. The moments of kindness you gave, the compassion you showed, the love you shared. These are the only treasures that grow when given away. The only wealth that cannot be stolen, the only power that outlives the body. So walk your path with a strong body, but an even stronger heart. Train your mind with discipline, but also your spirit with compassion. Help not only to change the lives of others, but to shape your own soul. For in the end, what will remain of you is not how high you climbed, nor how much you gathered, but how deeply you loved, and how widely you shared.